What is up, beautiful people? It's Wolf Brother Mythos from the channel Frost and Fist, and welcome to this video. And tonight is just going to be a chill paint chat as usual, but tonight what we're working on is some of my Custodes. If you watched from the beginning of the year, one of my goals for the year is to get my Custodes to a playable level. And although I am being told from just about most people I talk to, and just about every YouTube video out there, including one of my favorite news channels, Suspect Tactics, that this is possibly the worst codex or index set of rules that the Custodes have ever had. But I'm okay with that because this is my first foray going into Custodes, so I don't really know what I'm missing. And I've been on the receiving end of some Custodes ass whippings many times before. And outside looking in, I'm okay with an edition where they maybe get toned down a little bit, And there's no need for... I'm not a tournament player. There's no need to play something when it's super duper strong. So I have a feeling I'm just going to be... I'll be just fine playing with the Custodes as they are. Although, my brother Atlas, who I play probably the most, has a withering amount of firepower, and so who knows, maybe they'll just be gunned off the table before I can make anything happen. Who knows? Because TWC, you're gonna have to remind me what that's in relation to, because I just said a lot of stuff at once. Although if you were saying that because of Thunderwolf Cavalry, the Wolves are amazing. I did take them to the narrative event, as you guys know, and I don't think I've done a stream since then, but had an amazing time. And if you guys haven't, yes, Thunderwolf Cavalry. Yes, so I took a very Thunderwolf Cavalry heavy list. I took a Stormlance detachment. I took a big blob of a full set of 6 with 2 characters. I took my Wolf Lord Mythos. If you've never seen him, he's one of my entries over on Instagram. Feel free to check him out. Have I ever done a YouTube short on him? If not, it's one of my favorite conversions. I definitely need to put that up on a YouTube short. Also, I don't know if I've ever done my Con on Bike conversion. That's another one of my favorite conversions. But anyways, if not, I'll have to put those up on YouTube shorts. But yes, I took my Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf, one of my favorite conversions, and I put him with a battle leader on Thunderwolf. And actually, I took not 8, I took 9, because Edict Beer, 40k, Necrons, and more, once gifted me a really badass conversion he did of a 13th Company Iron Priest on Thunderwolf before they got moved over to Legends. And this particular event I went to allowed Legends, so I was like, oh, if you're allowed Legends, I gotta take the Edict Beer model. And so I brought the Edict Beer model. He walked up with my Dreadnoughts, and yeah, it was an amazing time. Such a great time. I did pretty well too. As far as my personal score, I went 2-1, and then we had a big team battle the next day. Thank you so much, my brother. Hey, Gamers with Coffee, Ashley and Greg, good to see you guys. I just barely started. You're not late at all. But even if you were to show up at 10:59, I wouldn't think of you guys as late, because I'm just blessed that any of you show up to tune in for even a minute of me every week. So thank you so much. But yes, I went 2-1. So I had 2 wins. I took 1 loss. And then we had a big team battle, which was like apocalypse style. Like everybody showed up with 3,000 points. And it was like Imperium versus Chaos and Xenos. Because there's only one Xenos player. It was Necrons. And because we had, one person more than the Chaos side, they were pretty much, for the purposes of this event, their goals aligned with that of the Chaos faction. So we gamers do need to stick around, absolutely. But yes, so I had a great time. In fact, Necrons were who I played in the first round. I just want to start off by, first of all, saying a big thank you to the Wardome for putting on the event, and the whole convention was just a blast. putting on the whole event, including, you know, the rest of the convention. Big shout out to, you know, my favorite local friendly game store manager for being the one to host the narrative event itself. And hey, oh, that is a bold compliment from another beautiful Get, my brother. I appreciate that. And big shout out to Manager X, as we call him in the Discord, for hosting the narrative event itself. You can tell he put a lot of time and effort into it. First of all, not to talk trash about anybody else's event, I just want to say that we had people from all the different events. You know, the GT players, the players from the 30K event, the Old World event, the AOS event. They came over to our event, you know, because like we all went and browsed everyone's tables and stuff like that, and said that we had the best looking tables. And they wouldn't have worked in a competitive sense. There was lots of open spaces. There was lots of like not necessarily competitive L-shaped ruins, but really good looking terrain, which I still need to compile some of my pictures together and at least show you guys some, you know, a glimpse of the time that I had. But yeah, it was a great looking event, and we got tons of compliments. I say we, like, you know, I worked on any of the terrain. I just felt lucky to be part of the narrative event. And the narrative event, a lot of people said, had the best looking terrain and table setup. And it was all put together by Manager X and, you know, some of the locals at the game store that he recruited into helping him. So really big shout out to Manager X and all the people that made the narrative event look so good. I mean, there was so many cool thematic tables. There was literally like a Death World table with like tyrannid tentacles kind of popping out, you know, like big giant tentacle-y things coming out through the ground. There was a Mechanicum table, of course. There was a big ass church table where it was like, I mean, the thing, like if you set the table, you know, down starting at the desk, the church, the big church often stood above most of the people playing there. It was pretty impressive. And we ended up repurposing that terrain for the Capitol building in the big team battle the next day. And yeah, the fight came down to the last round of between us and Chaos and the Necrons storming that Capitol building. It was so good. So there was the Death World, there was the Mechanicum. Oh, they had a comms array station. And what was really cool is that there were 3 games, and basically every time that you finished a game, you shifted over to the right. And so the person across from you would go over to their right, your left. So you would constantly, every new game, you'd have a new opponent, and you'd be playing on a new table. So that way everybody got to kind of experience at least, you know, a good chunk of the tables there. And they all did something. So like on the Death World, I harvested a sample from one of the big giant tyrannid tentacle things, and by harvesting a sample of that, we found something that gave us, like, I think it was +1 to wound for one, you know, for one of my units, 1 turn the next day, which was cool because it was in a big team battle where everybody's bringing titans and stuff like that, titans and knights and stuff like that, and bane blades, and you know, having +1 to wound is really nice. That was fun. There was the room with the 2 satellite array stations. It was a moon fortress, that table was, and if you won on that table, that meant your faction got to control the satellites and the communication satellites, and allowed you to deep strike an extra unit the next day. And so it was just cool stuff like that, like really narrative stuff. Trying to remember if, hey, happy freaking Friday to yourself, X-Gear Commander. I can't remember what the church did. But yeah, it's just like every table had some kind of bonus. So it was neat stuff. And the host of the entire Wardome convention, Jason, really cool. He and his entourage kind of went out. Hey, friendly neighborhood inquisitor, good to see you. He and his entourage were constantly, like when they weren't busy up front, you know, selling tickets and stuff like that, they'd be walking around, they'd be taking names off of badges and stuff like that, and just issuing random door prizes. So like as a door, oh, I should have brought it over to show you guys, but I got a huge D&D miniature that was like a fire giant colossus. It's huge. So that was neat. So that was just a cool little door prize just for showing up, you know. That was cool. Oh no. I'm sorry, G. I promise. I really need to work on Nightbot settings. View deleted message. Let me guess. It was probably a Hell Child. Oh, it was the hearts. I'm sorry, man. But yeah, it was such a good time. But everybody got little bonuses to their faction for the big team battle the next day, and we ended up having a tie between the two factions, and it literally came down to the last dice roll of the last turn in the big team apocalypse battle. So usually I would imagine most of the time big team battles like that, when you have literal titans and stuff like that firing at your army and stuff, I imagine it's usually like I always thought of it as like, you know, be a big landslide one way or the other. But for this to be like, I think a dozen of us each bringing 3,000 points, you know, it's a huge amount of fighting going on, and it still came down to the very last dice roll at the very last minute. I thought it was cool. And then I was extra blessed at the end of the event. They gave out medals, and so I got my Wardome medal and I was blessed with best sportsman for the Wardome. And the campaign, the narrative campaign we did was called Warzone Petrix. So I thought that was cool. Nice little hefty medal. Feel very honored and blessed that I was considered, you know, a good sportsman, and, you know, that people said that they enjoyed playing me. So, and I felt like I met some, you know, good folks there. And what's cool is that most of them play at the same local friendly game shop I like to go to. And so, you know, I've got a good chance of seeing, you know, having made friends and seeing people again in the future. In fact, I've stopped by the store since then, and, you know, I walked up to a table where there's now a Age of Sigmar Path of Glory campaign going on until the end of this month. And I went up, watched them play for a while, and I was greeted, you know, by, you know, 4 or 5 of the guys as I walked up to the table. So yeah, I felt like, you know, a part of the team, you know. So like what I initially signed up for, going to the narrative event to meet meet players that I wouldn't normally play against and become part of a greater whole, I feel like I accomplished that. So I'm still buying the Custodes Codex and cards. I love I love all the rule books, and I am a completionist. Hey, I totally get that. This will be my first Custodes Codex, and of course, you know, I definitely want the cards. So that way it just makes it easier to kind of shuffle through them and understand what my army is doing. So I'll probably be doing the same, my friend. So nice to meet you. I hope. I've got a very custom color scheme of Custodes that I'm doing. So if you like yours as the pure golden boys, I hope that my painting of Custodes tonight doesn't bother you too much. So I've been chatting about the narrative event for a while, but I guess we should get on to some of the painting, huh? G8 Nightbot's burger. Lucky Wolf Kit. Yes, it felt so... Yeah, okay. That is something... well, you know what? Let me go ahead and... I'm going to flip the camera around, guys. So I'm going to blink the camera while I move it so no one gets all motion sick and stuff like that. But I'm going to keep chatting. And while I get to painting, I'll start talking a little bit about some of my thoughts. Because your Wolf brother had not played Space Wolves at all during 10th edition. And so I was like, what's a great place to learn to play my Space Wolves? Let's just go ahead and jump into an event with them. And I gotta say, it changed my mind about a lot of things. So anyways, I'm gonna flip over the camera, and like I said, I'll still be here chatting. Don't freak out. Camera 1, boop, and blank. All right, and so yeah, I just like to flip this around because sometimes when I see people move cameras during their streams and stuff like that, it feels a little motion sicky. Don't want none of that, so I just turn off the camera for just a second, leave you guys with my okay voice, I guess. And yeah, just take care of the camera that way. All right, let's click it on and see what we're looking at. Hey, there's the painting desk. Oh, and a little bit of the messy desk. Let's focus less on the messy desk. There we go. There we go. Y'all saw nothing. Oh crap, wet weather, blacked out mythos. Yes, so here in the South Texas neck of the woods, there have been all kinds of storms since starting around overnight last night, with just like, thunderstorms, rainstorms, floodwaters, all kinds of stuff. And so, yeah, it's been a day. I wasn't sure I was going to have internet today, but the water all receded early this afternoon, and I was able to not only stream, of course, but I was able to run to, local pharmacy and get some stuff I needed. I needed some medicine. My puppo needed some medicine, so it's all good. Everything worked out okay. All right, so talking about the custodies I'm painting. None of them look this good yet, but this is one that I finished up last year when I was kind of working out my test colors for my custodies. And this is inspired by an old television show called Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. And so much like the custodies, Captain Power wore a lot of gold on his armor plates, but like, the under armor parts were all blue, and it kind of, I don't know, it gave this cool blue gold kind of aesthetic. And I threw in the pinks and purples because that with the blue just kind of it was an 80s show, by the way. And so anyways, I thought the pinks and purples kind of fit the vibe of this old 80s show I was trying to replicate in my paint job here. And this is like the first army that I've really just kind of went to, well, grim it up, as in slathering on streaking grime and of course wicking it away and stuff like that. And so, it's like kind of really darkened down my paint job. But since I've got like streaking grime literally in all the cracks and crevices of these models, I brightened it back up by doing the pink tufts and kind of the pink and purple power sword and stuff like that. And so it's like there's an element of grim darkness, but then there's also that element of like really bright vibrantness. So that's my goal here. So I painted up my first squad of 3, I think back when you could take a squad of 3. And so now I have to paint at least one more to have a legal list. So hence I started on this guy, and then I had another guy, and I'm like, well, you can take squads of 5. And I think this is from the box set where I got a squad of 5 with Burning of Prospero. And so I had 2 more to paint up. So I was like, well, I need 1 to make the squad legal, and then we'll just go ahead and paint up the extra guy because I've got him. I've also started on Valerian, and his blues have not been highlighted yet, so I'm probably going to do that at some point during the stream tonight. There's some spots I missed with the gold. I'll go back and do that. You can see here I've done the leathers on the other guys. I actually did this in the airport this week, and I've got a little YouTube short about painting in the airport I'll do up, but I did their leathers already. I need to go back. I didn't have Valerian with me when I was painting, so I need to go back and do Valerian's leathers as well. But yeah, so that's kind of what's on the agenda for tonight. It's just chip away a little further at those guys. Brother Roxas, yo! Brother Oversoul! Mythos! Hello, hello. Hello to you, brother. Running Bear! Good to see you, my friend. Where is Freak? Do you still stream with him? Freak has started his own channel with Brother Oni, or Steve as he goes by now, over on the channel V-Twin Gaming. You can find their channel down in the description below. We have a link tree to the Friends of the Frost and Fist, and you'll see V-Twin Gaming. And yeah, that's where you'll find him now. His well, I say brand new channel. It's been a couple of months now, but yeah, that's where he's working now. Well, not working, but that's where he does his hobby stuff now. Your name in Borderlands would be Meat Toes. No, I don't want toes in my name. Running Bear. Now we wait for Little White Dove. Solid chance no one gets that reference. I do not get that reference. My grandfather called me that when I was born. That's awesome. Brother Roxas, I hope you're doing well, man. I know you're probably getting ready for work. Impressive work as always. Thank you, Oversoul. Yes, lots of conquest over on V-Twin Gaming. You have to be old to get it, Mythos. Nice work, Frost. Thank you so much. Other thing I wanted to show you. So I was on a conference call today, and I was stuck at my desk, and I hadn't unpacked my custodies yet. They were still in my backpack from the airport. So I just grabbed something from my desk, and I happen to have this. Well, I've had my Tanith models sitting here primed for forever, and I've just not done anything with them. So I knocked out the first of the Tanith today. So I've got the black uniform underneath, which is always referenced in their books. I've got their cloaks, which actually I'll probably go back and add some dirt towards the bottoms of them and stuff like that. Because in the books, their cloaks always get, like, you know, dragged in the dirt. And McCall always made sure to teach them that the first thing they should do when they touch down planet side in the Gaunt's Ghost novels is to scoop up a handful of dirt and wipe them down on their cloaks. And his thought process is that by having the actual natural dirt of whatever planet that they're on would make their camouflage in the woods that much more authentic. So yeah, so I'm definitely going to go back and add some dirt and whatnot to their cloaks. Here is, you know, back when you could take Crusaders in your Imperial Guard. Here's the Crusaders that I painted up a hot minute ago. And kind of the same way, you know, I used a little bit of streaking grime, and then I came back with a red clay color, and just so I did the streaking grime first, and then I just hit barely the edges of their cloaks with that red clay kind of color and the airbrush, and just kind of got like a good faded dirt look, like their cloaks have been dragged through the mud. I miss you, Crusaders. I wish I could still take you. I don't even think they're a Legends unit for the Guards yet. But I think they're not a Legends unit because you can still take them as Sisters of Battle. Man, I had just painted those not too long before they got removed from the Imperial Guard, though. Anyways, yeah, I think I'm going to do the same kind of weathering at the bottom of their cloak like I did with the Crusaders' cloaks. But one thing I wanted to show is I found one of the Leagues of Votann heads. And, you know, I thought it would fit because the Tanith have like a vaguely kind of Celtic, you know, vibe to them. Please focus. I know it's focusing more on the details of my hands more than anything else, but please. Hello. Anyways, I really felt... there we go. I really felt like this Leagues of Votann head fit perfectly for kind of the Tanith aesthetic I was going for, with this big old mustache that I painted up, you know, as a ginger. This little las carbine. So what I'm going to do with the Tanith is I'm going to run them as kind of Catachan in my army, just because I just got into Guard about 2 years ago, and I have no attachment to Catachan. But I love the Gaunt's Ghosts. The Gaunt's Ghosts are like my favorite 40K book series in all of 40K at the moment, and 30K. And so, anyways, so I printed some up because I want them in my army, and I was like, what am I going to do with them? What am I going to represent them as? And so Catachan to me is just like the natural, like what they should be. And yeah, that's going to be what I do with them. Oh, you'll note, I don't know if you'll read very clearly on camera, but I wanted their like black kind of like carapace armor, you know, or battle armor on their torso to be different from the black of their BDU pants. And so I've used an off black called Pavement on the BDUs there, and on their flak armor I've used black primer, which is just Vallejo black with Incubi Darkness, and same on the little Las Carbine there. And so that way I want them to go both kind of read as different blacks, you know. One being the more clothy BDU material, one being the you know, harder material of armor and guns. Ah, the first and only. Yes, the 10th first and only. Let's see. Nice work so far, Frost. I appreciate it, brother. Hey, I'm 30 and I get the reference. Pretty sure the song I just referenced is older than my dad. Oh, man. Yeah, sadly, I don't get it. Somebody will have to fill me in. I turned 52 Friday, and I know several references for that, but Lonesome Dove popped up. Ah, Lonesome Dove. I see Oversoul got the reference. I'm guessing that my Tanith model, it reminds you of Dum Dum Dugan. House also made a How Stella Got Her Groove back reference. Oh, okay, that's cool. Mini War Mutt. What? After you all still interested in 40K? Man, after stuff going on earlier, sounds like y'all abandoned ship. You know, lots of people do the first thing that they don't like will abandon ship in this hobby. It's unfortunate that it happens, but yeah, I mean, this is the hobby where people have. Oh my goodness! I just made everything go out of focus by zooming in on my. I guess the bright orange shifts the focus. Okay, well, that's good to know. Now that bright orange of my cup is just causing it to try and autofocus over and over again. You all have failed me again. I'm referencing the Johnny Preston song Running Bear. Came out in 1959. Whew. Been a couple years since I played. Only have 3 miniatures and no paint or anything left, so when I get back to it, it'll be from the beginning. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that, brother. Well, you let me know when you start getting back into it. And at the very least, if I don't have nothing else, I got a printer. But yes, what I'm saying is that it is a shame. There's plenty of people who do, you know, jump ship as soon as something they don't like in this hobby happens. There have been famous entire burnings of armies. So, I mean, you know, it happens. Unfortunately. You have failed me, kid. Do not let it be the or you have failed me for the last time. Perhaps in the past I was too forgiving. Or that'll be the last time? Burning armies, yes. There are famously some entire armies that have been burned. Some of the famous ones were when the old world retired and they changed to Age of Sigmar. Somebody burnt their Tomb King's army, which was, you know, kind of sad, especially since Tomb King armies are back in vogue now. So, you know, so it's kind of a shame somebody burned up their whole army. And there are other famous ones of like a whole Necron army being burned, a whole Eldar being burned. Right, one-page rules to the rescue. That's you know, a lot of people, like, to me, the big time investment, there's plenty of time investment in learning rules and for an edition, sure, learning your army, learning a codex, sure, there's lots of research that can go into that. But to me, the big investment is collecting, spending money on, painting, building miniatures. And like you said, you can always find a different rule system to use for them, you know. So, anyways, yeah, I definitely agree. A bit of overreacting. All right, I think the first thing I want to do is try and catch up here is hi Jingle. Daddy's doing a show right now. Daddy can't have you up in his lap right now. Oh, okay, well you can just come up anyways, I guess. I just need you to make your character on the website sometime this week. I will give you tea. Oh, sweet. Okay. Do I need to come over for that? I didn't realize I needed... I mean, and this is shame on me. Like, I'm sure if I had read the Discord, I'd probably know the answers to these things. But yeah, I didn't realize that we needed to take our character sheets and put them on the website. I was like, yep, I created my character. I'm good to go. There's nothing else I need to do at the moment. I'm not even on his camera. Okay. You know, one of these shoulders, the decorations fill up the majority. So the only real thing that there's just like 4 little like lines of plain shoulder pads showing underneath, and so I just kind of like dipping in there with the tip of my brush to kind of put that blue on the flat part of the shoulder pad, but also because there is so much detail on this shoulder pad, that kind of, to me, gives a little depth to the shoulder pad too. Helps all those extra gold details on top stand out from the flat part here, you know? And this one, I was looking at it earlier, and I think this one is pretty much all decoration. I don't think there's any flat parts there. But that's okay, because like with this one, once that streaking grime and the washes get into the shoulder pad, you know, it'll pop some details out there. And it'll tone down all this blue that I've got going on. It's just copying from the one we made, and so you can make rolls in the Discord. Nice. What is up, beautiful people? Hey there, Brother Atlas. I was just telling them a little earlier about the awesome time we had at the Wardome, which was good stuff. Good stuff. Atlas did really well, so I went 2-1. Atlas won all 3 of his games. He was a tough cookie during the event. Sorry, I'm late between flooding and new toys. I forget what day it is. New toys. You want to tell us about it? I always enjoy hearing about new toys. The Wardome was amazing. Yes, that was So much fun. So much fun. And you know, I've been intimidated. I'm so glad Atlas went with me. So big shout out to him, because admittedly I was a little intimidated to go to the event by myself. And when I stopped to think about it, I was trying to put my finger on why I felt so intimidated. And at first I was like, well, maybe it's just because I'm like a really casual person. But that didn't quite seem like the right answer, because A, it's a narrative event. Allegedly, no one's going to go hardcore, which they didn't. I didn't really find any super meta lists there. So that met my expectations. I was glad to see that. You know, I was like, plus, you know, I've signed up for, like, tournaments, like local game shop tournaments, and, like campaigns and stuff before. And, you know, without knowing anyone. And it didn't bother me then. So I was like, you know, and of course, again, being very casual, you know, I was used to, you know, being in a losing position in some of those places. And by the way, for my custodies, I don't know what it is. These for some reason come out different than my other brands of paints that I've been using, the GW, the Vallejo, and the GW, Vallejo, and Monument. The finish is just different, and I really like it on these custodies. And I found that if I mix 50-50 between their Tesla blue and Mediterranean blue, I pretty much get, with a different finish, but I pretty much get Caldor Sky, which is one of my favorite blues of all time. But eventually, I think what I put my finger on as why I was nervous to go to this event, you know, by myself, is just because, like, you know, you get used to certain things. And so a lot of these big multiplayer things that I've gone to before, I've always known someone there, you know, like in 7th edition and 8th edition, you know, a lot of times if I was going to an event, either sometimes it would be Freak at the time, or my buddy Will, or my buddy Lars, but I always knew someone there. My very first event I signed up to in 40K was an escalation that I signed up with several friends I had at the time. You know, well, I still have the friends, but they don't play anymore. But I signed up, and, you know, my friends Cloud and Kelly were there. Daz was there. Kelly had painted a Bloodthirster that, if she had based it, I think probably would have won the painting competition, honestly. And that was the year that I got 2nd place at a painting event. But yeah, stuff like that. Like, you know, I knew people at the time. And then other events I would sign up for since then. You know, I always had, you know, Will, for a time. You know, he was a lore master on our channel. Yeah, we had a friend of ours named Zai. Brother Ethan was playing his Imperial Guard back then. And then, of course, you know, as the edition moved on, fewer of my friends were playing at the time. The circle got a little smaller. But, you know, just people I always knew were always part of these events. And so, anyways, once I realized, or once I talked Atlas into going, it was just a different vibe, just knowing somebody else that I knew was going to be there, you know? And, of course, it being one of my best friends is definitely a bonus. We even carpooled to the thing. We were able to talk strategy and how we thought it was going. And, you know, we were just in general able to talk about the event on, like, our lunch breaks and stuff like that. So, actually, because we rode together, we would talk strategy and stuff like that on the way up to, during lunch, during breaks. We were just buzzed with excitement the whole time. Random social interactions can be intimidating, definitely as I get older. Dude, I hear that. General social interactions in general are intimidating. Yeah. Yeah, and so I think that kind of like helps break you out of your shell for those kind of social interactions when you know somebody. You know, it's just like Atlas was my safety blanket or safety net, you know? And it turned out to be great company for it, of course. And like I said, everybody turned out to be really great people. Like, I think we've all heard of events and stuff like that where people meet or play against that guy. Yeah, but there was no that guy in our crowd. Like, everybody that I met and played with were all, like, pretty cool people. Funny, when I went to the Teams event in, I think, last October or November with Brother Oni, we were both like, oh yeah, mostly everybody was nice. And he was like, you said mostly. I was like, well, I mean, there may have been one. And he's like, was it such and such guy? I was like, yes, that guy. So yeah, there was the that guy of that event, but we didn't really have a that guy in this event. Really cool thing. So I won best sportsman for the narrative event, but that put me in a pool of people. They did a draw for all the best sportsmen of all of the events, and the winner of that one got this big ass prop chainsword that was donated to them. And yeah, that was really cool. That one was won by a lovely lady that goes to our local game store. And so yeah, that was cool to see that, you know, like big convention and somebody from the local store I go to won it. That was pretty neat, I thought. Paint Minis Live. Good to see you, brother. Big shout out to Paint Minis Live, also friend of the channel. You can find him in the Friend of the Frost and Fist link tree down below. But Paint Minis Live recently, this past Monday, celebrated 1 year live on YouTube. So a big happy anniversary, you know, stream-iversary to Paint Minis Live. And also, he's going to be shifting focus over to Instagram for a little bit while he builds up his brand, but still going to be doing, of course, some YouTubing. But then after he's finished building up his brand in whatever capacity he's able to, he's going to come back to the YouTube full time. So I definitely check him out on Instagram, check him out on YouTube, watch this space, because this, I'm telling you, is an up-and-coming star, and Paint Minis Live is going to have a very, very prominent place in, you know, the social circles of this hobby. So keep an eye out for this guy. Lurking tonight, but wanted to ask how you like the palette. I love the palette, man. It comes in real handy. I think I got a little spotting on it because I used the Vallejo primer on it, which I probably shouldn't have. But other than that, it works real nice. Works a treat. I really like the idea of having a prize for just the person actually like to play with. Exactly. Yeah, I thought that was really neat. I got a prize from it too. Oh, all these things I'm telling you guys about. My door prize, my prize for, like, I got more than the medal. I got the Combat Patrol box for Chaos Demons. And so it's funny because I was telling Atlas during the lunch break of one of the days at the Wardome. Yeah, he's like, because he was asking, he was kind of going through all the armies I played. He's like, oh, do you have any Chaos armies? And I was like, I've just never been interested in Chaos before. Then I end up winning a boarding patrol for Chaos Demons. So guess who's going to be painting demons, guys? And I think I'm going to take a page from Heresy for Heretics / gosh, what's her name? Dana Howell. I think I'm going to try and paint up some really vibrant synthwave or Dana Howe has another word, something else wave. But yeah, I think I'm going to try a hand at some synthwave demons. So, if I had them built tonight, I would have gotten started on that. But unfortunately, while I paint while I'm on the road, I don't build while I'm on the road, because you got to have more materials like the knives and glue and something to scrape mold lines with, and you know, more stuff that you're not supposed to have on an airplane. So the paint, at least I can take a Ziploc quart bag worth of liquids. And it's funny because the hotels I stay at, you know, usually they make that rule for toiletries. But the hotels I stay at almost always, hey, Roxas also loves synthwave, let's go. The Wardome Malleus is taking note of your confession. No. But since my toiletries are almost always done for free at whatever hotel I'm staying at, I use my little allotment for how much liquids I'm able to take, which is a quart Ziploc bag. I just fill it with paints. And I'm like, this is all the liquid I need. Ride the synthwave. Funky hurdles. Oh man. If you have a clip of Funky Hurdles saying that on camera somewhere, man, I would love to do that for my synthwave series. So yeah, if I could somehow bribe you and Funky Hurdles for permission for that, using a clip of that, that would really be cool. Man, I love the interesting colors that Scale 75 has, and the way that they're ultra matte. I love the way that looks. But they're a gel medium paint, and so, you know, you gotta, well, in my experience, of course, you know, who knows, I may not be doing it right, but in my experience, I gotta really thin them down, and then because I gotta really thin them down, a lot of layers of applications. This is why I don't use Scale 75 very often, because I'm an impatient man. I want to get on to the painting, the next stage of the painting. And yeah, so, you know, I don't normally sit there and do this many layers. But I think I'm happy where that's ending up now. You can do some touch-ups with gold. I love gold. There's a guy who does synthwave collections based on Mech Warrior themes. Ooh. I would like to see that. Vaporwave. That's the other term Dana Howe uses. I know Dana Howe uses vaporwave. Check out Funk Fiction. They did music for No Straight Roads and Sonic Mania. Nice. I can't say much about the projects I'm working on in the background, but you flatter me, sir. Cough. 40K. Nice. That's amazing. Oh man, you that's an amazing cough you have there, sir. Get that looked at and taken care of, my friend. That's why I love Pro Acryl. Like Pro Acryl is like got good pigment density, good pigment vibrancy, so they're nice saturated paints, and typically, just like, you know, like I still will lubricate the barrel of my airbrushes with like Flow Improver, but like aside from lubricating the barrel of my airbrush, I don't even really need to thin them down to put them in my airbrush, because like just right out of the bottle, you know, I mean, Pro Acryl's got, you know, good, it's nice and it's fairly thin, got good flow to it and good saturation. So yeah, Monument Hobbies is currently, I think, maybe my favorite range of paints. Of course, you know, a lot of people are on that Army Paver Fanatic line right now, and you know, I haven't tried it, so I don't know. Who knows? That might overtake my current favorite. Now, I know Valerian doesn't come with a cape, but it felt weird for a one of the most prominent Custodes captains to not have a cape. And so I wanted to put one on him. And so I think I'm going to give him the same kind of vibrant pink and purple power effect on his blade as the others. And I think I'm going to start, I'm going to do kind of an off-white, like gray sear on the inside of his cape. So that way it'll frame his, you know, armor nicely. And on the outside, we're going to go from this dark purple. And I brought the airbrush with me. And I'm going to try out a nice light purple. He listened to Edna. No capes! Hey, I like dramatics, so I like flowy things like capes and trench coats. That's always been my jam. Man, in gosh, what was that Val Kilmer movie with the man-eating lion? It's gonna drive me crazy. Anyways, in that movie, somebody says to him that you never ever take an untested weapon out into the field of battle. Which I may be throwing caution to the wind, because I got it in last week before I left for my trip, but I didn't have the adapter because currently all my equipment is Iwata, so I had to get an adapter to go from the Badger airbrush sizing from the connections to the hoses to my Iwata hoses. So I got in while I was out of town. My little adapter piece came in. So yeah, I think it's time for us to try out the brand new Sodar. Not the brand new, like it's been out for years, but my brand new Sotar 2020. The Ghost in the Darkness. Thank you. That was like right at the tip of my, it was like right at the tip of my tongue. Mythos dies to an airplane catching its cape. Yeah, that guy at the beginning where Edna talks about it, you know, that I'm the example. I like all the flowy things. Trench coats, capes, I want it all. I think that's why I like Daft Punk so much. They weren't just electronica, they were mixed with synthwave, techno, and house. Lurk mode activated. Remember to hit the happy buttons, fellow lurkers. Mythos is a great painter, entertainer, and a swell guy to be around. Thank you so much, brother. I love the 90s VHS tape, Miami Vice vibe, all of it. Hell yeah. Yeah, I say that as I paid a Crimson Fist captain's cape. Your Crimson Fists are looking good, sir. Looking good indeed. All right. Before we take our untested rifle into combat, I'm going to need to lube it up. Here we go. Airbrush flow improver. People sometimes ask me what I mean when I say talk about lubing up the barrel of my airbrush. I got to remember not to do that. One thing about Badger airbrushes, I have a habit of just putting the airbrush against my hand for the backflow. But you can't do that with Badger airbrushes because they don't come with a nozzle cover or, you know, nozzle protector. And so, yeah, every time I do that with the Badger, I just stab my hand with that needle. Ow, that's smart. Y'all be smarter than me. which at this point is probably not hard. All right, but people ask what I mean when I say I'm lubricating the barrel, and that's because one of the greats, when I was learning to airbrush, I watched a lot of Kenny Boucher, and one of the things he said is that you should never allow paint to touch the dry bottom of your airbrush. There should always be some kind of moisture at the bottom, and so he, in his videos at the time, would often run a little bit of water, a little bit of flow improver through his airbrush, and then he'd be like, all right, see that little sheen of moisture left at the bottom? That's what we're going with. Never want to put just straight out. That's when we add in the paint. That's Mythos telling Mythos that we need new ink. That's right. It's like, I need to jab myself with a needle. I must need new ink. Alright, it looks like over time, this Gene Stealer purple has thickened up, because I haven't used it in a couple years probably. So we're going to leave just a little bit more flow improver in the bottom. And we're going to take one of our junk brushes and just mix it all together, as Bosana Pansino used to say. Most people are smart, and they mix up their paint separately in a cup instead of doing it right in the paint airbrush. But I'm lazy. All right, first time ever spraying the Sotar, and it feels good. Feels like I can get some nice tight. Look, I can even get some nice tight lines if I want to. Now, granted, I'm usually wanting a little more blending. I'm not looking for super tight lines, but if I wanted to, I mean, that tightness gets in there. Think about doing power effect on, you know, small blade like this sphere here. I think I could make some pretty tight, you know, corners with that. So yeah. At the only badger I'd used before was the 105 Patriot, and at the time I didn't realize until I was searching their website for this last sale, but they have a 105 with a short trigger like this one, and the one I had was a big rounded trigger like way up here, which I did not like at all. And I think my smaller fingers, it just felt like I was only able to really get like a shotgun blast. Like I had trouble getting like fine control out of it. And I know that's a me problem. Lots of people use the 105 as their workhorse. You know, I'm not talking trash about the 105. I'm just saying I wasn't capable of using the 105. However, the Sotar, that was just the first spray ever using it, but that felt pretty good. Alright, so now I'm going to take my dark purple cape, and we're going to see if we can put some lighter purple highlight. This Gene Stealer purple is like more of a lavendery kind of color. Alright, right off the bat, I feel like I over-thinned that paint. So we're going to adjust that. This is why most people don't do their mixing in the bowl. I know you're joking, my brother, but actually what a lot of hobbyists use are indeed... Do I have any still left here? Pretty sure, somewhere. Oh man, I thought I still had some. But a lot of people use these like tiny red Solo cups. Like they're tiny. I think they're meant for like, you know, mouthwashes and taking shots, you know. Like they sell them, they typically sell them in like the section where, you know, there's a little like Dixie paper cups where, you know, you've got your like little mouthwashing cup. But of course, a lot of people use them for shot glasses, not for dental purposes. Anyways, that's what a lot of people use for mixing their paints to go in the airbrush. Go for it, painting. How are you doing? What's Nightpod? The bane of G's enjoyment. It's one of the. It's like a automated chat mod. All right, just a little thing I like to do is I always spray like onto my hand or napkin or nearby surface. Get the kind of pressure that I want. Get some of that extra moisture out of the barrel there. All right, this is the right consistency I'm looking for. Well, I definitely am not having, of course, I was doing so well. I think, man, just the fact that I over-thinned this paint, though, is really not working out for me. I love when I go to paint on stream in front of people and keep messing it up. But, you know, I'd like to think most of you are, well, it's not even like to think, pretty sure it's pretty evident at this point. Like, nobody comes here for my expertise and, or for thinking that I'm, I've got any, what's the word? Aptitude. Hopefully you guys are here for my personality, because if you guys are here for my aptitude, yeah, I think there would be problems. All right. Okay, that is looking more like the correct consistency. Just take a couple of tries, right, guys? Couple of tries. There we go. Now, the over-thinning the paint, that was a Mythos problem. And I don't want anybody to think that was a Sotar problem. That was absolutely a Mythos problem. But yeah, I am enjoying the way the Sotar is feeling. Which, the way the 105, the way that felt when I was airbrushing was my biggest problem before, I definitely feel like the Sotar is a huge improvement on it. And I think I want to go even brighter, maybe. So I might do that again with just a little bit of white. Whereas Gene Sealer Purple is kind of a lavendery kind of color, maybe I can get a little bit of a like a lilac kind of color. Because I think that lilac will look really good with the pink power blade I like to do. Is aptitude synonymous with competence? Because if so, same bro, same. I don't know, you talk about all the time how, you know, you joke all the time about not being good at games, but, you know, you seem pretty good from where I'm standing. I don't think I could have completed half the games that you complete, man. I'm starting something new tomorrow. Live stream about cigars. That's awesome. Well, around that time, I'll be getting up to get ready to go to the store I'm getting in a learning game of Age of Sigmar for the Path of Glory campaign. However, I'll definitely put you on while I'm getting ready, and whatever I don't catch before I head to the store, man, I will definitely make sure to hit up later and finish watching. Speaking of which, Oversoul Gaming recently did a live stream of the DLC for the Resident Evil 4 remake this week. You need to catch that too. And if any of you are big fans of the Resident Evil series or Ada Wong in general, I'm not too ashamed to admit I'm a little bit of an Ada Wong fanboy. Yeah, he did the Ada Wong DLC. Check him out over on Oversoul Gaming. And that's another live stream I've been meaning to catch up on. It's going to be a short one. Okay, cool. Will that be on your personal channel, the X-Gear Commander? I know you also work in the cigar business, so I want to double check if that's, you know, on your personal channel or maybe the store channel. Oh, it'll probably help if I do this on camera. Pro YouTuber here, guys. There we go. Lavender color, or that lilac color, is exactly what I was going for. I think that will complement, you know, the pink on my power weapon effects and the little tufts, little pink tufts that I do at the bottom very nicely. Now, unfortunately, what I've done is a little bit of over highlighting, and I need to reestablish some shadows. First, we're going to do a rinse out of the cup here. On your personal channel there, the X-Gear Commander, cool. Well, looking forward to that, my brother. I make tasteful-ish jokes now instead of blind hate. I agree. What kind of airbrush are you using, Mythos? A Badger? Yes, so I have, it's well known on the channel that I am a Iwata fanboy, and that the last several years have been using my Iwata Revolution, I want to say it was. But during LVO, I want to say, or no, Adepticon, of course, the biggest one. during Adepticon, they did a big 50% off, or 50 or airbrushes were 50 to 60% off. Still a stealth sale they do on their website and on Facebook, and they only do it. They do it about once a year on their Adepticon, or on their website during Adepticon. And anyways, snagged myself a SOTAR 2020 during their stealth sale. I always wonder why they call that a stealth sale, because when you do it during the biggest event in the US of the year, can't be that stealthy. I'm 34 minutes behind on the stream. Dude, no worries, no worries. I'm just talking noise anyways. I'm not covering anything important. Although I did say like an hour ago I was going to talk about Thunderwolf Cavalry and my thoughts. But yeah, so I'm using the SOTAR 2020. Long story short, Bill. And while I am still a Iwata fanboy, I didn't like the experience. Again, I'm not talking trash. I know that the problem was the user, me, but I did not enjoy my experience with the 105 Patriot. I am enjoying my experience with the SOTAR. Very minimal Resident Evil 6 bashing 2. Just kidding. I don't do that anymore. I like the game more in hindsight. Oh, okay. That's where the growing statement came from. Sorry. I was reading up the chat instead of down the chat. There's amount of skill involved in the challenge, but you don't see the part where I edit out me looking up how to solve puzzles. Oh, yeah, that's usually me too. Or my wife, who is amazing at puzzles, is a lot of like, babe, Lily, help me. Sometimes I just flat out hand her the controller. Oh, yeah, look at all this professional streamerness, me just putting these bottles in front of the camera here. Because I know you're my target demographic, so I often feel apologetic in my commentary when I don't like a game. I'm playing Benny 2, but I know you're probably like you're probably like watching it, and that's reflected. That's cool. See, I don't own an airbrush, so it's all Latin to me. That's fair. Man, I think part of the experience, like me having a very different experience with my previous Badger paintbrush versus, this one, and the fact that I've always liked the Iwata brand stuff more, and even the Iwata knockoffs, like the Masters brushes. I love the Masters airbrushes. Granted, they're a little more cheaply made, so I've loved them, but I've had like 3 or 4 of them, and I was okay with that because they were like $19, and so I'm like, if I got to spend $19 every year and a half, I'm okay with that. Now that being said, yeah, so I think some of it is just the way it feels to you, like the way it feels in your hand. Just like, I think a good American example is, I also like firearms, and while some people swear by, the Glock brand, it just doesn't feel right in my hands, right? And I think if another weapon feels better in my hands, then I'm going to, even if, there are technical reasons why that one should be the better firearm, ultimately, if it's not going to be used to that effect in my hands, then, you know, then I should just keep using whatever I'm using. And in my case, you know, I really liked the Springfield Armory, and I've now moved on to the brand SIG. I really like the SIG, which, by the way, you know, a Glock is often a local law enforcement brand, and a SIG is the weapon of federal agents. I'm just joshing. I don't like the way a Glock feels in my hand, and in that same way, I'm not really a big fan of the way my Badger 105 felt in my hand, and so I was less inclined to use it. And eventually, I'd sold it off. Okay, so I'm going back to my darkest color, the Nagaroth Night, and I am going to try and exert some fine control. Okay, this is a 0.2 needle, so it's nice and small. And I'm going to just try and get just in those recesses. But if for some reason I fail, I'd just like to remind everybody that you don't come to the Frost and Fist for aptitude or skill. You come here because we joke about doing Chippendales, and we make immature jokes about, you know, genitalia. That's why we're here. I say we. I mean me in the chat. I think we did a pretty good job keeping it in the recesses, guys. I think. Now, could I have done this with a larger needle? You know, I think I use an 05 in my Iwata. Could I have done this with a larger needle? Quite possibly. Yeah, that looks a lot more stark on camera than it does in real life. I may need to go in. Well, we're going to go in with a filter color anyways, but I think it'll be fine. I think once I put the filter in, it'll be fine. In fact, because I'm going to be filtering, I imagine to an extent, you know, a bit of starkness is what you want. That Sotar Black is the little black dress of the airbrush world. Ah! See, even though I'm an Iwata guy, I had to get me an LBD. Everybody needs an LBD. Skill will always be a greater investment. And, you know, that's something that I always appreciate, is that, you know, while I always talk about how, you know, what skills I don't have, you know, this is definitely one of those hobbies. In fact, it is one of, for me, the easiest to see hobbies where, you know, the more you do it, the better you get. It's super easy in this hobby for me to see. And that sometimes I've noticed it many times in my life where saying that I'm not skilled at something has been my own barrier to getting something accomplished. And sometimes you just got to do it, and skill will come somewhere along the way. And I know that's scary, because in our hobby, the things we practice on, the things we paint on, are often, you know, sometimes it's a $10 infantry model. Sometimes it's a $150 Primarch. Sometimes it's a $120 Lehman Russ. or Rogaldorn or whatever it is. And these prices and numbers I just, made up on the spot. But the point is that it can be scary to do stuff with something you attach a high value to. But sometimes you just got to do it, and the learning and the skill kind of comes somewhere along the way. Don't get me wrong, you can absolutely do it wrong for 20 years straight. But if you're happy with the result, then it isn't really still wrong. I paint 90% of my stuff with a $40 airbrush. I've only ever gotten paid for that last 10%. Hobby to your happiness. Sell the skill if you want to. Hey, you are right, my brother. You are absolutely right. Mythos just I didn't want us to see butter lines. Funniest thing, I hate lines in the butter. I don't know why. Ever since I started cooking as a youngling, I hate lines in the butter. So, like, use a spoon to get your butter, get a knife to get the butter, never use the fork. I hate lines in the butter. I don't know why, but I've been like that ever since my mom first started teaching me to cook as a young lad. I'm both complaining about the game while apologizing for complaining about the game, then backpedaling on my complaints. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've definitely felt that. It's like Dead Space. The plasma cutter is the only weapon you need. Exactly. But yeah, I've definitely seen that in games that you haven't been enjoying before and felt bad about not enjoying. I got a hack for people I heard from elsewhere. You need to practice edge highlighting. Use a bit of sprue. Hey, and sprue comes for free. That's a good idea. That's why you're hiding the butter again. I don't know why I've always been like that, but ever since I was a kid. Here I am, blocking the minis with a big plastic bottle again. Alright, and this is a bit of fluorescent purple from Wicked Colors. And the only place I was able to get this fluorescent purple, like I said, I think Wicked Colors is a line that's mostly carried by Hobby Lobby. And so I ended up buying, because I couldn't find a small bottle of it, I ended up buying a huge one. And so that's why I've got a little, like, unlabeled dropper bottle of this purple here. And like most fluorescent paints, this purple has a bit of a translucent quality. And my intention is to amp up that translucent quality with some contrast medium. That's a great tip or quiz here. I take it one step further and suggest start on the sprue and then move on to Dollar Store Green Army Men. Ah, the Green Army Men hack. This one is known far and wide. Man, at one point, we bought a whole bunch of those little Dollar Store Green Army Men. Because their first year, well, even before he brought this character to Frosted Fist, Freak used to have this, Friday show on his Facebook where he'd do different characters on Fridays. He had this one character, Bubba, that he eventually brought over to Frosted Fist for a handful of videos. And of course, he used to live in, I think it was Alabama, but he put on his Alabama accent. He put on some fake teeth and fake buck teeth and thick glasses with tape along the middle. And he put on this persona, right? And we've got a video of it somewhere back of it's called Getting In Too Cheap. And there he put on these little green army men as his space marines. and we were going to do for a little while, but then like he switched jobs and time just kind of got away from us. But we were going to do a whole series of Bubba's little green army men, space marines. We called them drunk angels because Bubba was always drunk. Oh man, it was a funny little series that never got to take off. Okay, guys, this, I don't know how well it's going to reflect in my work, but this is what she looks like after the filter. We've got some nice dark purple spots, and then the parts that we sprayed lilac, once we went over with the fluorescent purple, I think it really kind of ties it together. But Bubba's Drunk Angels, he had like a 7-Eleven can, not 7-Up, 7-Eleven, 7-Up. He had a 7-Up can drop pod. And anyways, he was going to do a paint-along series and do like the whole 30 minutes for each episode painting in the character of Bubba. I need Bubba to teach me how to airbrush. Oh man. The little green army men are dirt cheap, best practice models, and you will never miss and be able to experiment on organic shapes. Very true. In the same vein, you can practice priming and painting camo on spare cutoffs of for sale signs and other card before moving on to your tanks. True. Hey Mythos, when is that date night Space Marine diorama video coming out? I've been waiting for ages. Man, I need to do that. I do need to practice airbrushing. I have one of those rechargeable ones I've had since the start of the year, not used. You know what? I have seen a few people do videos with those handheld rechargeable airbrushes, and that may not be a bad series. That might be a good idea for a video. The only thing that I don't like when I'm airbrushing is like, so to get the fluorescent was really strong, and so to put the amount of medium in to make the paint as translucent as I wanted, ended up with way more purple than I need, and I really don't have anything that I need purple right now. So when playing the Resident Evil 4 DLC, I came across a taxidermy raccoon, and Ada was like, well, this brings back memories, and I don't know why, but I lost it. Like, that on-the-nose Easter egg made me laugh very hard. Now, help me make sure that I'm getting it. Is it just because it's in reference to Raccoon City? Sometimes I think too hard on Easter eggs, and they're like, no, that's people. Sometimes people are like, oh, no, that's it. That's the whole thing. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, it's this thing. And they're like, no, man, here's the deeper meaning behind it. And I'm like, okay. I never know when I'm overthinking or underthinking. Like, I think I get subtlety sometimes, but then sometimes it just completely passes me by. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with our maiden voyage of the SOTAR 2020. Or, if we're going to continue talking about Bubba, the SOTAR 2020. And as a resident, born in Texas, a current resident of Texas, I feel like I can, I can pull off the bad Southern accents, without being in poor taste. I'm excited for the Resident Evil 5 remake. Maybe Sheva's AI won't be a complete ass this time. Man, I hope so, because I really like Sheva as a character. But man, there were so many times where I'd be like, Sheva, I just need you to do something. So this isn't like 10v1. Can you do just a little something, Sheva? But there have been, we didn't get to do it very often because we didn't have two controllers at the time, so we were only able to do this when we go up to my brother's and Roxas's house and play Resident Evil 5 there. But doing co-op with my wife when she was playing Sheva and I didn't have to worry about the AI, that was awesome. Now we have two controllers, so I'm ready for when Resident Evil 5 comes out, the remake, and she and I can get in there. Gee, just set aside an hour 3 times a week for 3 weeks. Think. Then your paint to milk consistency. You will know your tool and what it can and cannot do by the end of it. It's true. And of course, like the goal of going for a milk or skim milk kind of consistency is a nice idea, but when you're first learning, sometimes you're like, what does this even mean? Is this milk consistency? Is this skim? But like, trust me, while it may be frustrating at first, like eventually you'll be able to just kind of feel what works for you. Or like you saw me messing with the airbrush earlier, I started spraying it. Nope, this is still a little too wet. Nope, this is still a little too wet. Oh, this is just right. Let's see. Spent a little bit amount of my stream talking about all the ways they could improve 5 and 6 with remakes, just like they did with 4, like the boss battle with Jack being an actual fight instead of a QTE. Yeah, I just want though. Okay, this is a confession moment. How do confessions start with? Oh yeah. Forgive me, Daddy, I've been naughty. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Yeah, that's the one. So I don't play Resident Evil games the way they're supposed to be played. Okay. I with the Resi 2, Resi 3 remake, just spent the extra like $10 DLC to get the infinite ammo weapons and gunned my way through the whole thing. So I don't want to stress about resource management. I just want to have the ammo I need and go through the game. And I don't like that with, I love graphically and all the cool stuff that they've done for Resi 4. I don't like that for some reason. They did it for 2 and 3, and then 4, you can't just pay money and get the infinite ammo guns, because like I don't want to worry about resource management, even if it's just like a good sidearm. Like I don't want to worry about resource management. Give me my bullets and let me just gun my way through the thing. That's what I want. I want them to do that same thing they did in 2 and 3 to 4. The remakes are also really good at doubling down on the horror aspect while still maintaining the action without leaning heavily into one or the other. They manage to have action and still be scary. Garrett, how are you doing, my brother? You doing all right, man? I honestly hope they just pretend 6 doesn't exist. They'll remake it, but damn do I want to forget it. I thought it was, hello, my name is Child and I'm an alcoholic, but hate means and titles, so I'm gonna go drink. Now it sounds like even though you're a fan of horror, you don't like the 2 biggest mechanics of horror games: resource management from survival horror and stealth from psychological horror. Exactly. Exactly. Like, I love horror atmosphere, but I'm not a big fan of horror mechanics. I was talking about the crazy storms in the area earlier, and so, you know, being another member of the local fam, I hope you guys haven't been too directly affected with all of this weather shenanigans. Brother Garrett, I called them the panic mechanics because they're designed to instill panic in the player. That's fair. He doesn't like having to wear his brown pants. This guy knows what I'm talking about. I don't know why, but that line from the first Deadpool movie. This guy in the brown pants knows what I'm talking about. I laughed so hard. Alright, so have a great night. I'm going ahead and start cleaning up before I close up at 11 p.m. sharp. Dude, have a great night closing. I hope everything, you know, the rest of the work night goes easily. And I hope you have a great stream in the morning. And I will do my best to tune in. I mean, being scared is the whole reason to play horror games, but as a third-party observer and watching YouTube channel, you can enjoy atmosphere without being forced to live it. That's true. That's true. That's why I love your horror games, man. All this horror talk makes me want to go play Outlast again. Outlast is so good, and admittedly, again, because I'm not a big fan of horror mechanics, I got my Outlast fix by watching Oversoul play it, Darklight Dreamer play it. I watched Marky Moo play it. Speaking of Marky Moo, man, I took my cloakbrand.com. Oh, speaking of me liking to wear long flowy things like capes and trench coats, the cardigan I got from Markiplier's Cloak brand is long. It comes down to, you know, almost to my ankles. And man, I always get compliments on the thing everywhere I go. And man, I just like meeting my client, I got compliments on it this week, and then coming back through the airport, I got compliments on it again. Oh, and the hotel, the person who checked me in at the hotel complimented, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is Markiplier's cardigan. And like, actually more often than I would have thought, you know, people recognize, oh, Markiplier from YouTube. Outlast is a horror game that is both resource management and stealth. Yes. Oh man, I remember, especially in the second one, you would get so mad about running out of batteries. Which is how I feel about bullets. Which is why I just want to pay my $10 and get infinite bullets. Definitely a masterclass in horror. Definitely my favorite horror game of all time. Nice. Dead Island 2, my most hated game. And why is that, my friend? I don't know why I spent all that time highlighting the armor plates on his ass when I'm just going to cover it up with the cape, now that I think about it. I'll know his ass cheeks are highlighted. Alright, we've got my blues highlighted. I think it's time to move on to... I've got a few gold touch-ups I can do, but I think I'm going to move on to my leather color first. Help me catch up a little more towards where I've got these two guys in the background. What do you hate so much about it? Try beating it. Oh, man, I have had Paint Minis live in the chat. Guys, I think, if I'm not supposed to be talking about this already, Bill, just like throw something at me. I've got like 4 cats around here. You can just shake up one of them and throw them at me. But got an upcoming collaboration with Paint Minis Live and Hound's Armory, and each of us have been sent a box of Blade Guard veterans, courtesy of Bill over at Paint Minis Live, and we're going to be doing a. He was Star-Lord, and he said, "You, me, dance off," to me and Hound's Armory. And so we're going to be painting our Blade Guard veterans in different styles and just kind of a paint and compare to see how they come out looking in our different styles. And so I love dual wielding in so many games. Any game where I can play a Knight of Twin Swords. Knight of Twin Swords is always my go-to, which is why in the new Final Fantasy expansion I will be coming back to play a Viper. That'll be cool. But yeah, so I did the first one I built was the Knight of Twin Swords. Now, this will be for my Ultramarines, because I already have some Blade Guard veterans for my Space Wolves. I have some Blade Guard veteran kind of proxies. I think they're going to be more Inner Circle companion proxies. But in like their Forge World models that are Tartaros Terminators with some of the power glaives. Viper does look cool, but I'm a Paladin main at heart. Oh yeah, I'm a DPS. I get really big anxiety from playing MMOs, and so there's no way I could tank and have the party rely on me. That's just not going to happen. I tried tanking once in WoW, and I did great until I had to tank for other people, and oh man, just because like every little thing that goes wrong, they're like, "Fuck this tank, man," and I'm just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll just uninstall now." And part of that is just me and my personality. Like, I like to think that in some things I can be pretty confident at, but for some reason when it comes to video games, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, like more and more lately I have a lot of wrestling with like a imposter syndrome and what's the other one, inferiority complex. And so I get it stuck in my head where I'm like, I am a shit, tank compared to everybody else. You know what? I shouldn't even be here. And then I just uninstall the game. So anyways, here's the Sergeant here. This will be for me, unless I'm playing something where it needs to be WYSIWYG. But this is going to be my Plasma and Power Sword Sergeant. I like the look of the Volkite more, and the coils are a little bit bigger for me to do my pink power glow on. That's why I went with the Volkite instead of the actual Plasma. It's just because I thought with the pink effect that I do, it would look a little cooler. So, but if, I'm playing at a tournament, or if anyone else like calls me out on it, like, that's not a Plasma gun, then I'll run it as a Volkite. But I just like the look of it. And like I said, the bigger coils will leave me a little more room to do my power effects. So that's the Sergeant. I've got my Knight of Twin Swords here. And then this one, none of them have their shields on. So this one's got I love how they did the little connector as like a little buckler here that just fits right inside. If you haven't seen this kit, really neatly designed. So they have like a little notched buckler here that also serves as the mount with a built-in slot that only fits one way for the shield to mount on. I think that's a really neat design. I think that's especially a neat design coming from a Space Wolves player, where before, like the Storm Shields used to get as Thunder Wolves, there was like a kind of little like tiny fist piece that was where you attached your shield, and it wasn't like a really good reliable place to stick the shield on. And it didn't hold very well. This has, like, you can see, even without glue, that's holding. That's got good hold design, because it's like a fitted slot that's like just perfectly sized and shaped, right? And so, I mean, obviously, after I paint it to the level I want, I will glue it eventually. But I'm just saying, like, I'm just sitting here smacking it, right? It holds well. The Thunderwolf Cavalry shields come off so easily because like the attachment point is so tiny, and it's kind of like a weird wrist tilted angle. And so like if you don't get the angle just right when you're putting your shield in, again, even with the glue, it can just pop off kind of easily. Like this here, even no glue, like I'm just sitting here, smack, 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 smack. You know, you can hear it. ASMR time. Yeah, it's like, it's nice and it holds on well. But ironically though, even though I like the sword and shield pose, this is the only one that's going to be holding his shield, because I've got the Nine of Twin Swords thing going on here. Oh, I also love that they've got the attachment point is like a rounded buckler, right? So it fits into that little rounded spot, but that little rounded buckler shape is also perfectly matched to this round part of the power pack here. And so when I go to glue this on, you know, this rounded groove for the shield actually fits onto the rounded groove of the backpack here. And so I actually have a perfect place to mount the shield after I paint it up to the standard that I want. You can just glue it right on. Speaking of which, have you talked about your cavalry? No, I keep saying I'm going to, and I keep getting distracted. I'm the one distracting me, by the way. It's my ADD. But I like playing Dreamlike Valley. Cool. Need more Kingdom Hearts in your life, like Goofy be your tank? Yes. Surprisingly good at it. He is. Just in general, tend to avoid games that don't have endings. If it never rolls credit, then I can't be done with it, and that messes with me. That's fair. But anyways, before I go on to Thunderbolt Cavalry. So yes, these are the 3 Blade Guard veterans that I've built up that were so generously sent to myself and Hound's Armory by the lovely, glorious, and beautiful beard that is Bill T from Paint Minis Live. I'm looking forward to this collaboration and seeing how we all paint our models up. So mine are built. I was going to prime them today, but the weather was horrendous. And while I do have several colors of airbrush primer, for my Ultramarines, I specifically start with the Games Workshop Macragge Blue primer. And I like to caveat that because most people, when they start from Macragge Blue, it's because Macragge Blue is their main color. But for me, it's the undercolor. I like the way Macragge Blue makes my 2 main. It's a 3-part recipe, of course. So my 2 main colors are Imperial Blue from Vallejo. It is my shadow color, my shade color, and Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl Blue is my highlight color. But if I do this over black primer, the Imperial Blue looks too dark and it shows up as little more than black. If I do it on top of like gray or white primer, it's too bright. I specifically like how it looks specifically over a blue primer. And in kind of the same way here, it looks weird when I paint it over white or gray, and over black I don't get the same punch of brightness. So that's why I am waiting for a nice sunny day so I can prime these guys up. And whenever Bill T, I'm imagining it for some reason. I'm imagining it like a NASCAR races where he's going to have probably a lovely lady in like a really short Daisy Dukes and a button up tied off at at the midriff, come to my door and drop a flag like at NASCAR, and then that's when I'll know I can start painting up these models. So when that time comes, it'll be time for our painting compare. But so far, we're allowed to build them and we're allowed to prime them. That's been another project I've been working on. Okay, what am I going to do while I talk about the Thunderbolts? Because I will get distracted. Leather. I said I was going to paint the leather. Alright, while I go to paint the leather here, an Stratum Gray. Gray Sear. Nope. We'll go with bright neutral gray since I don't know where gray seer is. Which I'm sure right after the stream I'll see it and I'll be like, oh, how did I miss that right in front of my face? Alright, so Thunderwolf Cavalry. I'm going to do a separate video on this, I think, just to say, hey, I was wrong. I was uninspired to play my Space Wolves. I'll get right on that, Mythos. Thanks, man. You're the best. I knew you'd come through. I actually used Macragge Blue as a primer for my Crimson Fists. Acryl Blue right over it. Dark Blue and then Blue. And Sky Blue as the highlights. Ah, see? You know what I'm talking about. For some reason, the Acryl Blues look better over Macragge Blue as the primer. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it works out well that way, I think. Alright. I am thinning down my bright neutral gray with a little bit of white airbrush paint. Thinning it down and, of course, just lightening it up just a touch. Because it's a... Even though on the color conversion chart it says it's the same as a gray seer, but it's just a little bit darker. So, no big deal. A little bit of airbrush, a drop or two of airbrush white in there. Jeez. And it comes out the same. So, yeah, I am actually happy to do a video sometime soon where I am not too ashamed to say that I was completely wrong. Now, I use this very loosely, and I'll explain why. But not that I was wrong. The wrong is very much there. What I do mean as a term I use loosely is that I was unmotivated for the longest time to play my wolves in 10th because Thunderwolf Cavalry took such a beating with the nerf bat. And I don't even necessarily know that they themselves... No, they got nerfed. When you look at the data sheet by itself for... And don't get me wrong, they are nerfed. That is not the part that I'm saying I'm wrong about. I was uninspired because they were so nerfed, I felt like I don't think I'll enjoy using my Thunderwolves. I don't think my Thunderwolves will be any good. That's the part I was wrong about. Are they nerfed? Abso-effing-lutely. Like, just like it's straight in the stats. The stats don't lie. I've been told in my lifetime that there are two things that don't lie. And that's numbers and hips. And in this case, the hips on the Thunderwolves are fine, I guess. But the numbers, the numbers are horrendous. Where we used to have, strength 8 Thunder Hammers. Your power axes, your power fists, strength 8 power fists, storm shields. Even, like, I don't think that was too powerful because if you look at it, with the new toughness on all vehicles in the world, even light vehicles, something strength 8 is wounding on a 5. That is not reliable anti-tank at all. So that by itself, just the simple increase on the toughness of the things around it. I think those profiles would have been kind of humbled. But then they took that a step further and say, well, you guys have too many weapon data sheets, which I think is bullshit, because Blood Angels got to keep their special weapons. But anyways, I digress. You guys have too many special weapon data sheets. So they're all just going to be, I know the word is heirloom weapons, but I'm going to say antique weapons. They're old and fragile and liable to break on you. So, they're delicate. And I was pissed because suddenly I have this army full of badass hammers and fists. And You know, and they all count as basically a strength 5 chainsword. -1 AP, 1 damage, strength 5. And I'm like, Space Wolves are supposed to be rocking these like legendary weapons to beat shit in combat, and mine are all hammered and fisted out, and they've just got heavy weapons on all of them because they're cool like that. In all fairness, the Blood Angel Primarch had to die to keep that gear. Oh man, Sanguinius' sacrifice meant that they could keep special sanguine swords, or carmine swords. Would you be interested in doing a paint and compare to in the future fantasy edition? Yeah. You are offering me a chance to work with a true professional YouTuber paint minis live in the future? Yes, please. It would be my honor. Assuming you're talking to me. It's, you know, if you're talking to somebody in the chat. But yeah, and so it felt frustrating, and because of that, and those of you who don't know, I got into Warhammer starting with Space Wolves because of the Thunderwolf Cavalry, because I walked by a box on a shelf and there was a Viking Space Marine riding a Fething wolf into battle with melee weapons and a shield, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Yes, okay, sign me up. This is the army I want. So it was that artwork of Thunderwolf Cavalry that got me into playing Space Wolves as my first army. And so Thunderwolf Cavalry being my favorite unit in the entire game, suddenly just being so nerfed that they all hit at the strength of a chainsword, just felt wrong. One damage as well. Granted, they felt there, and especially towards the start of the 10th, allegedly, they were trying to get rid of units that were take all comers. They wanted specialized units. They wanted you to take anti-infantry things for infantry and anti-tank things for tanks. And so what they were doing, in theory, was reducing the Thunderwolf Cavalry's ability to be a take all comers kind of weapon. But I was still pissed. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like having shit taken away from me. And so I was upset, and I was like, man, they don't even seem like worth taking anymore. And if we are just going by their data sheet, it does look like that, not gonna lie. However, people, including, the meta scene, but big shout out, because Big D from Gamecraft Dragon was constantly trying to tell me, like, dude, I know you're bummed, I know they're your favorite, trust me, Thunderwolves are still good this edition. And don't get me wrong, when I say that he's right, they are good this edition, they are still a far cry from where they were, much like these Custodies. Apparently I like things that get kicked in the nuts. But they actually, when they get going, when you start stacking combos, they actually get really neat. And so my experience with them is they were useful in literally every game over the weekend. Every single game. I felt really cool because they have this one stratagem that lets them advance for 9 inches, and they move 10, so that's almost a double movement. And so I started the game where I played on the church map, on almost right up against this massive church, and then over the course of 2 turns, I used the stratagem to advance 9 inches and just really slingshotted my way 19 inches at a time all the way around this giant church, and then came up behind my opponent's tanks. He was playing Traitor Guard, and actually even with the nerf to their weapons, stacking their combos, I was able to take out a Leman Russ in a turn of combat. There was a Rogel Dorn that I finished off. It had already taken some significant damage, but I did finish off the Rogel Dorn in a round of combat. And yeah, so it did great at being able to chomp through infantry, but also was able to fill its role, or its previous role. Granted, it's not supposed to have the anti-vehicle role anymore, but I was able to make it work. And so, while not exactly being what it used to be, I was able to see, you know, a nice chunk of the strength it used to have. Now, granted, that was with the characters, so it wasn't just the unit, it was with the characters, and that's part of what I want to talk about. So you got to stack buffs and synergize with the cavalry. And what I did, what's that like? What's what like? I said, is it because I said factions that get kicked in the nuts? Is that what we're wondering about? What's it like to get kicked in the nuts? Okay, so the stats by themselves: strength 5, AP 1 damage, not good stats by any stretch of the imagination. However, they do have a special rule on the cavalry that gives the unit, the whole unit, including characters you attached. Yeah, a Grey Knight player wants to know what it's like to get kicked in the nuts. Sustained. You're right. Allegedly, a lot of people feel like Grey Knights are on the upswing again, though. They seem to have like one time in every edition that's short-lived, but for one time where they're like badasses in the meta. In 9th edition, and I think early 8th edition, no, 9th edition, Mortal Wounds were a 9th edition mechanic, right? So in 9th edition, it was Mortal Wound spam. And I think in 8th edition, it was Smite spam. But yeah, there's like one time during each edition where Grey Knights are just awesome, but it's always short-lived and burns out quickly. But I always cheer for that. Like, I guess because they're underrepresented so much of the time. Anytime I do see, you know, Grey Knights, the Grey Knights in the Ascendancy, I cheer for them. I want to see them go the distance. Also because I like their precursors, the Knights Errant in the 30k novels. Anyways, going back to Thunderwolves. You guys see how easy it is for me to get off topic? So, their special ability is that their whole unit, including attached characters, gain +1 damage on the turn that they charge. That means if you take a battle leader or lieutenant on Thunderwolf with a Power Fist, that's going to go from a damage 2 to a damage 3 Power Fist. If you take a captain with a Thunderhammer, or the Wolf Lord rather, on Thunderwolf with the Thunderhammer, that goes to a damage 3 Thunderhammer. That's pretty awesome. And of course, they make a great bodyguard squad for the captain and the lieutenant, who are going to be doing the majority of the damage anyways. And then on top of that, the lieutenant or the battle leader gives them the ability for lethal hits. So that means anytime that you attack and you roll a 6 on the attack, you can automatically wound. And so that strength 5 now doesn't matter as much if you're getting some hits that automatically convert to wounds. Them being, because otherwise, without the lethal hits, a lot of times if you're hitting a hard target, you're wounding on 6s. Like I said, even light vehicles are like toughness 10 nowadays. So you're kind of fishing for 6s anyways to wound. And so what I like to do is Oath of Moment whatever target they're going to be charging. And then I just re-roll everything that's not a 6, trying to fish for more 6s so they get the automatic conversions for wounds. For automatic wounds, by getting the lethal hits in. And then, of course, any extra after that, any hits that didn't become lethal hits, I'll still fish for more 6s. And so I'm kind of doubling up on their chances to wound hard targets. And so I think a lieutenant or battle leader is really good for them in this edition. And then my captain is the real beefsteak. And they're in the Stormlance. There are a couple of good battle tactic stratagems. One is that, again, having a captain lets them use one battle tactic for free every turn. And so a defensive one is one where you can make your whole mounted unit, which Thunderwolves are, of course, mounted units, -1 to hit and -1 to wound. It is such a massive durability buff. If it was just -1 to hit by itself, that would save them a lot of wounds. But hit and wound, I saw it over and over again pay for itself. So that's a good one. And then there's an offensive one that you can do that lets you get reroll charges, I want to say. Yeah, reroll charges. And that's not even the main reason I use it, because it gives your whole team lance, which means now you're wounding on 1 easier. And so now all the Thunderwolves and whatnot that were wounding on 6s against the vehicle before are now wounding on 5s, plus you're getting the lethal hits from the lieutenant, so you're getting a lot more wounds through. But then all of that transfers onto themselves. So now, they all share these buffs. And so now they're charging in. The captain is getting the buff from the Thunderwolf Cavalry, so now his hammer is damage 3. Right? He's got the ability to lance, and I give him an enhancement that is particular to the Stormlance Task Force, where he gets +2 strength on the charge. +2 strength on the charge and +2 attacks. And so now he's getting like 9 attacks, or 7 attacks, sorry. It goes from 5 to 7 attacks. And they're strength 10 now because he's getting +2 to strength on the charge. And so now against a light vehicle, he's 10 and 10 and he's wounding on 4s. And then the lance will make him still wound on 3s. And so for a brief moment, it's like being back to the old days. And then even if it's a heavy duty vehicle like toughness 12, toughness 13, he would be wounding on 5s. Now he's wounding on 4s because of the lance stratagem, and he's still getting that +2 attacks, and he's still getting that damage 3 thunder hammer. So again, it still feels a bit like the old days. And then every bit of damage on top of that is just icing on the cake. You're still getting the battle leader, who's got the damage 3 power fist, and he's getting lethal hits from himself. And of course we're re-rolling against that target Oath of Moment, and so now he's just converting more of those hits into lethal hits, and so you're wounding automatically, and even ones that don't go through now, because he would be wounding on a 5. Lance is making him wound on a 4, so he's really just like a miniature version of that captain, or that Wolf Lord. And then you've got the rest of the squad that, while they're getting automatic wounds on 6s, with Lance, they would be wounding on 6. They're still now only wounding on 5s, but that's still better when they were only wounding on 6s before that. And so all of that together, you're just chipping away damage, not to mention the bites. from the mounts themselves. I never expect any damage from the mounts themselves, so any damage that they do is just icing on the cake. And between all of this together, when you put all of those buffs together, the +2 attacks enhancement with the +2 strength, the lance ability, the -1 to hit, -1 to wound, which, by the way, you can do one of those stratagems for free every turn with the captain, which I think is huge and can't be understated. Getting the extra damage on the turn that you charge in. Like, all of these buffs stacking together makes them a very solid unit. And they are cheap. Well, they're cheap in theory. They're cheap for the Thunderwolf Cavalry squad by themselves. But they're not cheap because you got to put everything together. I think that squad for everything was like 200 and something points. Still not very expensive. But yeah, when you put it all together, it turned out to be great. Thunderwolves are pretty much the only good thing Space Wolves have going for them, sadly. Everyone plays them that way. Because that's what's unique to the Space Wolves. I mean, they can have other play styles because they have the whole Space Marine Codex open to them. One example is that before, we didn't have apothecaries, but I was able to run a brick of aggressors up the field with an apothecary, giving them all lethal hits, just able to just generate a ton of bolter wounds through. Now, they're bolters. A lot of people save them, but not every army has 3-up armor save, right? And so when I was playing against Trader Guard, it was good for mulching infantry. And they help some against the Immortals and the Lich Guard for the Necrons. And so the Aggressor squad is okay without lethal hits, but being able to put an Apothecary Biologus in, which is something Wolves couldn't do before, that's something that came from the regular Space Marine Codex, but I was able to use, and I thought that came to a pretty good effect. It is the Thunderwolf Cavalry are their most effective playstyle right now. And I'm not hating on that because Thunderwolf Cavalry are my favorite thing from the Codex. But I think that there are other things that could be there. But like for people who are just trying to go for what's Space Wolf specific, yeah, that is the best viable thing. Wolfen, unfortunately, they have gone in the complete... They used to be very expensive and super hard hitting. And now they are very, very cheap. And they feel cheap. You know when you get a cheap knockoff of something and you're like, ah, yeah, it feels cheap. That's kind of what the Wolfen feel like now. It's like they're very inexpensive and they feel inexpensive. You know what I mean? Imagine how busted they would be if they got the Hammer Fist rules, right? I do still wish that they could still take all Thunderhammers and Fists, but I reluctantly understand now. Because I feel like the fact that you can still get just a brief shimmer of their former glory back by stacking all those combos. I do admit if you could stack all of that and they still had their old stats, it might be less than balanced. I can be big enough to admit. Off to bed. Good night, you legends. I'll listen to the full video tomorrow. Have a blessed night. You have a blessed night, brother. I am going to be wrapping it up soon myself. But before we do that, we are going to lay down this leather color. Having done some touch-ups on the gold. Oh, and I think some of this blue, this gold is still peeking through this blue here. Oh, man. We will not be doing the leather because while I did the leather on the... What are these little battle skirts called again? A thald? Something like that? I forget what battle skirts are called. The Scuba Sapien. Do they still have the sagas? They have a their Space Wolf specific detachment is one that can be driven by the sagas. Nobody likes them. I don't know any. I mean, I'm sure they exist, right? Purges. Oh, I was way off. But thank you, friendly neighborhood inquisitor. But the sagas just feel bad, man, because most of the sagas, your opponent can make all the decisions for them, right? Like, if your goal is, because you have to do, I think most of them, you have to do them with your warlord or a character, and it's like, oh, take out this big vehicle, or take out another character with this character. If your opponent knows you're going for those sagas, they can just turtle up and keep you away from whatever it is you're trying to do. And I dislike having a portion of my roles that are at the complete mercy of the opponent. Granted, some people are like, some people say, well, that's kind of the point, though. You're making the opponent react to you and play your game. Yeah, in theory, it can be a good zoning tool, I guess. I don't like zoning tools. That is great for a person playing 3D chess, 4D chess, 5D chess. I want to be able to do what the thing says on the tin. And I know that makes me very simple-minded, and I'm okay with that. But if something says, hey, I'm supposed to get this cool bonus, I want the cool bonus. I don't want the psychological effect of, oh, well, my opponent's going to keep me from getting that cool bonus by just playing around it. Yeah, theoretically, that makes them have to play your game, but I want the cool thing. I want what it says on the tin. And overall, I just find that if you go to, say, a Space Wolf the detachment where you have to do the sagas to get the cool thing, the special effect, I just find that less effective and efficient than, say, going to a Space Marine detachment where it's like, hey, you get this cool thing all the time. And then because, I have, what's it called? I have, what is that phrase I'm looking for? Where's my microphone? What's the thing where you begin to love your captor? Oh man, it's at the tip of my tongue. I have Stockholm Syndrome. I'm like, oh, this cool thing I can have? Like, but what do I got to do for it? Like, maybe I can use it turn 2 or turn 3 or something after I do something for you. And they're like, nah, man, this is a Space Marine Codex. You get that cool thing all the time. And I'm like, really? You get to do the cool thing all the time? Yeah, it just feels so inefficient compared to, just having, like, in theory, it's cool. You've got a saga. You've done a deed of saga, and it will be sung in the stories. And because it's being sung in the stories, it has a cool benefit. The theory of it is cool. The execution of it is just like, everybody else got the name brand, warlord trait, and you get the warlord trait from Wish. That's what it feels like. Your simple-minded strategy is basically how I play tactics like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! Exactly. I want to do the cool thing it says on the tin. My wife and I were just talking about that in Overwatch earlier. How, in the old days, ultimates like Divas and Hanzos that create a big explosion that kills people used to be good at dealing damage, but now everybody knows to just step out of the way when they hear them called out. Cool. But they're still useful in competitive play as zoning tools. People know they have to, when they hear those noises, they have to play around it. And because they're playing around it, you now have sections of the map that they're not going to be standing in. Okay, it's called a zoning tool, which theoretically is what you're doing by saying you're using one of the Space Wolf sagas. Like, you're like, hey, I'm doing the saga thing, and they're like, that's cool, I just won't let you do it. And you're now technically creating a zoning tool, right? Because if, like, you have to kill their warlord or one of their characters with your character, they're just going to play keep away from you and keep that character away from you, right? And granted, that's what zoning is for. You're like, okay, now I can play this game knowing that they're not going to bring such and such character over to this part of the map because they know I want to do the cool thing. And that is great for our strategy and tactics, I guess. But if I'm told, hey, you're getting this cool thing, and I'm like, when? And they're like, when the opponent lets you. And I'm like, but why though? I just want to do the cool thing. I would rather skip the sagas and go play in the Space Marine Codex where I can get the cool thing all the time. But I play Space Wolves doing it because I also want to keep cool things like the named characters, the Thunderwolf Cavalry, the special Dreadnoughts. Oh, the Dreads did so good. They did so good until they didn't. Of course, on a couple of the bigger maps, including the big mega battle, sometimes because Dreadnoughts just moved so slowly, they were just out of position for a good chunk of the game. Or in the case of my Trader Guard player friend who just like first turn he was like, well, I've got a Rogaldorn, a Vanquisher, and I think he called it a Magna Cannon or something like that on one of his Baneblade variants. Where it's just like, okay, well, these two Dreadnoughts, they don't exist anymore. I'm like, okay. Goodbye, my friend. Hello, darkness, my old friend. But yeah, like the characters, the Dreadnoughts, like Space Wolves have some cool units. I just don't like their saga system. And I think I've ranted enough about that. But Elst Nation, rant more! Good to see you, my brother. Good morning. Volcano Cannon. I'm familiar with it. Yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Ah, Stockholm. Thank you. My Astral Drakes being Salamander successors, I don't have to sacrifice Theme for free abilities. Lol, Firestorm Assault Force all day. I've played the Firestorm Assault Force. It's so good. It is so good. I teleported Marnius Calgar in, which is even better with the Salamander characters. But I teleported Marnius Calgar and 6 aggressors in with Flamers, and I had Strength 6 Flamers. No, they were Strength 5 Flamers versus a squad of Kriegsmen, and wiped almost all of them out. And then I just charged the last couple. It was glorious. It was like 20-man squad, boop, gone. It was so good. I liked Firestorm. I've settled for my Ultramarines. My favorite has been Vanguard Spearhead, especially because I play against my brother Atlas a lot, Imperial Guard, lots of firepower, and I'm just like, okay, well, the stealth and -1 to hit gives me so much durability and protection, plus the always being in cover. Well, when you're outside of 12 anyways. So it's very helpful. So I've decided on Vanguard Spearhead for my Ultramarines, but for the little while that I did play the Firestorm Assault Force, it was very good. It was very fun to play too. And I think that's part, if you're enjoying how a detachment feels, that helps a lot. Or a rule set in general feels. Oh no, I don't see Elstination's message anymore. Nightbot, did you take... Oh no, I am so sorry, Elstination. I have no control over this Nightbot thing. I need to go in and take a look at its settings. You know, a Titan killer versus some dreadnoughts is a little overkill. It's like, I've got a Redemptor dreadnought. Whoa! I've got a Space Wolf dreadnought. Whoa! Yeah, those volcano cannons are scary, man. And also, Nightbot didn't like the caps. I'm sorry, man. Those Baneblade variants were so good. Like, even the one that was just like anti-infantry with like the Vulcan Mega Bolter, just like so much like so much, like, even though like the Vulcan Mega Bolter isn't like a lot of high AP, high damage, the fact that it's just got so many shots from so many guns, and being toughness 13, so that way even like most anti-tank las cannons and equivalents like that, still wounding on 5s is huge, massive durability, that toughness 13. Hey, not gonna lie, made me want a Baneblade for my Imperial Guard. I got a little bit of a guard boner from it. But thankfully, no one at the convention saw, because my boner was guarded. One of us. One of us. Oh yes. Oh yes. I have fully embraced my love of guard now. Like, in fact, when I was mentioning earlier that I hadn't played my Space Wolves in 10th edition up to this point, it's mostly because I've been painting Ultramarines, and when I haven't been playing what I've been painted when I haven't been painting the Ultras I've been recently painting, it's been to get more games in with my Imperial Guard, just because I've been loving my Imperial Guard so much. They're another one, kind of like my Wolves, where I really liked where they were for the short-lived 9th edition Codex that they had, but I still love them in 10th. I definitely preferred the 9th edition Codex, and I think part of that is just because I felt like I didn't get long enough to play it, being that, you know, it was really officially out in January, and by the time the summer came around for 10th edition, that's only 6 months. So I think part of me is still just a little bit bitter over that, but I like them okay now. I still love them. They're really good. Tank Aces. Tank Aces was so good. My buddy ran 3 and deleted my vehicles in Dreadnoughts turn 1 and 2. Ooh. 3 Baneblade variants? Oh my goodness. Well, it's past midnight for me, and I'm doing some overtime tomorrow. Don't work too hard tomorrow, my friend. And yeah, we're actually 11 minutes over. But I said earlier in the stream what I wanted to do before the end of the stream was get these leather colors down, and I think we've accomplished that goal. And we got Valerian's Cape knocked out on top of that, so I feel pretty good about that. So we're going to go ahead and call it here, fam. But thank you all so much for joining me tonight. I got a bunch done, chipping away, and I think they're all, aside from the fact that Valerian's not standing on a base, I think they're all pretty caught up now with how far along they are in the painting process. So yeah, I can just kind of keep chipping away at them now that they're all caught up. Glad to actually got to make the stream tonight. No, thank you guys. Because without chatting with amazing people like you, there'd be no reason for me to do this. So thank you guys so much for being here. And like earlier, I wasn't even sure like man, I'm so wiped from traveling this week. Do I even stream tonight? And I was like, you know what? I love chatting with the people. I'm definitely going to get on stream. So thank you guys. Hey, Freak. Good to see you. I mean, Al. Freak the Gamer. V-Twin Gaming. Somebody asked about you earlier. I referred them over to your channel at V-Twin Gaming. Let me see if I can pull up the name for you. It was... Here's Running Bear, so somewhere right around there. It was... There's Go For It Painting. There's X Gear, Paint Minis Live. Man, somebody asked about you earlier, and I just don't see it now. This is where I get really professional, guys, getting quiet and scrolling through the comments. I feel like it was right around Running Bear. The Roxas. The Atlas. Anyway, somebody asked where's Freak been and asked if we still stream together, so I sent them over to your channel, and hopefully they'll find you there at V-Twin Gaming and enjoy your content. So anyways, great chat tonight, guys. Like I said, I was feeling super tired at the beginning of the stream, and some chat with you guys really helped wake up my evening. And provide me some energy to go into my weekend. So I really appreciate that, and I always find some stimulating conversation about Warhammer to be invigorating. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you guys liked tonight's episode, make sure that you grab up an ox and smash that like button in the name of the Emperor. Drop us some comments down below, and feel free to be part of any of tonight's ridiculous conversations. Let me know what you think about things like 10th edition changes, whether that be the way I was lamenting my Thunderwolves and Wolfen, or about the way a lot of people feel about the Custodes and the lack of power that they have in their new Codex. A lot of people feel like they've lost too much. I gotta say though, when I was playing against them in previous editions, I got my ass kicked by these guys all the time. So I'm not so upset about maybe a little bit of a power loss there. Maybe it was deserved a little bit. I may have said too much. But you guys let me know how you feel. And if you guys are not yet subscribed to people like G the Hypersapien, Freak the Gamer, Elstonation, of course, down in the comments below. Oh, and tell us what your favorite Resident Evil game is. That's a really good one. That's a really good one. Let us know down in the comments below. And if you guys are not yet subscribed to the Friends of the Frosted Fists in the link tree below, if you're not subscribed to us, or me here on the Frosted Fist, then hit the subscribe button, because we'd love to have you as part of the pack here on the Frosted Fist. Till next time, guys, stay frosty.